Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Adi Achint. For the first time appearing on Dev Talks, I have Mr. Sandip Ghose, an author, commentator, and especially quite prolific about what is happening in the country. So appreciate Sir from coming in and taking out time from his, of course, his busy game with the corporates to help us understand what's happening in our country as far as the elections and the international narrative towards it. Namaskar, sir. Nice to have you on the
Thank,
platform.
thank you so much, Adi. It's not helping you understand. I can share some of my understanding, where I'm coming from, and some of my impressions, and then it's for you and your viewers to, agree, disagree, or make whatever they want out of it. Yeah.
Thank you for that pragmatic approach. So let me ask you this: we are in the third phase today, and this program will be released today itself. So, how do you see the game of the elections as till now?
See, I think getting into the mathematics or number game, I think is quite pointless. And because there is a lot of narrative building, people are trying to do even on that. In terms of how each one's projections. So I don't think that number game is what we ought to get into. Every side would have its logic. Some may be having inside information, but we really don't know whatever till the final, EVMs are open. But my uh, thinking is from at least again, if I were to pick on what people are talking, you'll find that there is a lot of projections or opinion building in terms of the wave, etc., happening from the anti-BJP front, and but BJP is maintaining a studious silence. Now, that some may explain as being some kind of nervousness or they're being, cagey or conservative. But I would think that's part of the strategy for BJP not to make their voters complacent. And there is, therefore, they are not really trying to counter those claims in
Hmm.
any forceful way to say that's not true, etc., because that's not going to suit their strategy. Secondly, what I feel what I wrote in my previous piece, I call them the kindergarten psephologists. They tend to also underestimate the uh, um, capability or the machinery of BJP to also uh, read numbers or predict things. So it cannot be that, what some armchair psephologist sitting in Chennai or elsewhere knows, which an Amit Shah and his back room has not been able to figure out, or they didn't anticipate. So if there is a question of attrition of numbers in electorates where they had peaked, it will be very, very naive to believe that they had not factored those things in. And they would have factored those things, and then they would have had some counter strategy over there. In any business, you're in a hotel business or whatever, which are bad seasons, good seasons. If there is a new hotel property coming up next to where your property is, what are the consequences and what can happen? And you will have your strategy. You just don't assume that, oh, I have an established brand, so everybody will first knock on my doors. Nobody's going to try the other place. So in any form. So, and these people are far too professional and veterans not to have factored those in. So what can be the story till first two rounds? Worst case scenario is okay. They may, from their earlier count, they lose 20, 30 seats from what they had in these constituencies, but that still doesn't close the game. There is a long way to go. And what BJP is doing is they are calibrating both their narrative and the strategy according to the phases, as they're moving up. So you'll find the narrative changing.
Hmm.
And so, depending on which place they're going into, that's where they constantly go on juggling. And so, and that's what's happening. And people are asking, oh, why aren't they talking about what they have done, development, etc. Now that they have, Modi has finished talking about that in the last 5 years. and he has been in every fora, in every meeting. He has been just, repeating ad nauseum the Labarti schemes, etc. And that does not he understands. Ultimately, when you're pressing the button or whatever you're doing, it's like the point of sale communication. When you're going to the store, what you're picking up is what top of mind. So at this point in time, it is how do you tap that top of mind, and that's what he's trying to do. And that, to be fair, that's what the opposition is trying to do. Whether we agree with the kind of communication that Rahul Gandhi may be doing, or some of the opposition leaders may be doing, but that's precisely what they are trying to do. So uh, he may be talking of the SAT exams or uh, uh, something else. But if he feels that that's what's going to change the mind of the voter at that point in time, there. But what has definitely changed, is I think from uh, it appearing that the election was going to be a no contest scene for whatever reason. There has been a lot of energy injected into the opposition. And I would think, along with when you talk of energy in an election, with that, it means also money. So there may be some people who are betting on it and who are willing to put in money, because without that, you really cannot take on a giant machinery like BJP. So there is traction to that extent. So, but I think, it's far from anybody saying the course has changed, the tide has turned, or anything of that kind.
Hmm.
We have to wait and watch. Even the factor of the heat, and it's not that nobody, even in our kind of business, we factor in the weather from one season to another. Okay, I used to sell soaps once upon a time in my life. We would know in summers there will be more soap sold, but monsoons less, or in winter less when there are extreme winters. So people, if they think that that was not thought of by any political party, I think we are really underestimating their intelligence.
That's an interesting perspective. And let me just say this, I'm not trying to flatter you, but that's the first time I've ever heard that, because a lot of people are now today in a place where they're giving advice as if the parties have not factored it in. I would take it to the point that the opposition wouldn't have, but an election machine like what Prime Minister Modi sits on, I mean, if we can think of it, I'm sure they can as well. So that's something I absolutely agree with you, and that's very interesting. So when you look at the narrative, and you've kind of very interestingly said that every phase has a different narrative, whereas when we see the opposition, they've got only one narrative, and that's Modi out. It's like hashtag Modi out. That's it. How do you see the resonance of differential narratives for every phase by the ruling party, which is the BJP under Prime Minister Modi, and the a singular narrative, which is Modi out, by pretty much everybody else?
The only thing, again, I would say a change where I may not agree with that. I may have serious, not just differences, objection to that kind of narrative, where the opposition narrative from from Modi out, it has changed today. Today there is this whole picture of Modi being a very sinister character, and therefore need to take him out. He
Hmm.
is an autocrat, he's a fascist, he is going to change the constitution, he is doing this, there'll be reservations where Muslims will go, and all those, the phobia or the, horror stories which are being created. I think that is the change, and that is getting also uh, uh, orchestrated by the international surround sound, which is being created by the global media and everywhere else. And that Indian democracy is a threat. And then you're bringing in the caste, the Dalit, all those elements over there. So it is no longer just a Modi out, you know. They are trying to make it him to be a very, very diabolical character, painting him like but internationally they're painting, comparing with a Putin or a Trump or Erdogan or those sort of dictators, and internally they're trying to paint. So that has been a major shift because every time what they find is unless you are able to tar the prime minister's image, they have never been able to uh, take on Modi from his
Mm,
chief minister days. It's not that they have succeeded, and that's Modi's why Modi has always risen against all such negative campaigning. But that's been the so it was first the Godra before 2014, and after 2014, in 2019 they started with Chaukidar Chor Hai and Rafale and everything else, and then now it has come to first whether it's electoral bond, but that they can't really speak too much about it because all the parties have the hand in the till. But all the other elements, and which is being said and added, and as I said, amplified by the ecosystem, both in India and overseas. And we'll talk about the overseas bit, as you said later. That is what is coming through. Now, how
mm,
far that is resonating on the ground, how far the people on the ground really worry about it, that's something one doesn't know. They're making it out as if there is a very a sort of a groundswell, latent groundswell happening like it had happened during the emergency in 1977. People are just waiting to rise against the present regime. I don't see any evidence of that. Okay, there may be. What is there again going against BJP that I grant, and I know of it firsthand in certain parts, is the anti-incumbency against the local candidates. Some of
mm.
the local MPs and candidates, they had become both highly corrupt, they were arrogant and very, very high-handed and muscular kind of thing. And that has that will go against them in many parts. I think Narendra Modi was aware of it. So they tried to change a few of the candidates by giving tickets to new faces. That comes with its own baggage of,
Yeah.
local rebellion, I think. But that's, I think, again, something they have taken a calculated risk. No. And they did the same thing during the assembly elections. Some thought it was a mistake, including me. I thought it was not, it's not going to pay off in Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan, but I was proven wrong. One will have to wait and see
Mm,
how those.
mm,
But I think those are the bigger risks for BJP rather than any of the counter narratives.
mm. I agree with that, sir. There is also another this thing which is domestically kind of featuring is kind of create a polarization sort of an effect, which is pretty much common in India today. A lot of people are surprised. Oh, there's a Hindu Muslim thing, there is caste thing. I'm not, because that's how elections have been fought in India for decades. Uh, I would kind of make an observation. This time it is much lesser, and there is a certain amount of, not all, let me make that caveat right there, but a certain rejection from the people of this caste and the religious narrative which is there. Would you agree with that, sir?
The caste, certainly, I think, and the caste thing has been proven. Dipankar Gupta, who's one of our most eminent sociologists, he has earlier empirically shown that this caste narrative is hugely overplayed.
Yeah.
And when there have been shifts and changes, he had shown by empirical data, yeah, and the voting across caste lines change. Okay. And today, apart from giving these sort of things that, oh, I'm 90% and you're 10% and you're not having any control, that's not what people really worry about. They are seeing at the end of the day what are they receiving in their hand. And that is where I think Modi has managed to
Mm,
change. And what they have done, if you see, not just, they're very systematically, some of the alliances they've stitched up. Okay. Apart from the nominations of, you say, from the president to other things, but the alliances they've stitched up, say, for example, in Bihar, with Ramvilas Paswan's party or anything, they have everywhere they've factored in also the caste element. So I don't
Hmm.
think the caste element is so much, but the religious element is where I think they are also walking into a trap. I was totally amazed to hear Shashi Tharoor yesterday subscribing to this theory of Hemant Karkare and trying to say that yes, it should be investigated and reopened. Someone like him to say that, I would consider that to be far bigger desperation. And why did he have to do this? His election is over. Unless there's a party line he's towing. And if that's a party line, then, you know, they're again asking for Modi to hit the ball out of the park.
Yep, yep, yep. That was quite astonishing for a person like him. I expected out of other people, but he's, somewhat, you don't expect these wild kind of conspiracy theories coming from his mouth. You don't kind of expect that. And someone who's been there in the UN, someone who's kind of traveled and well read, well spoken, and this and that, you don't expect that coming out of him. But that's very interesting that it kind of transcends intellect, if I may say that. These kind of narratives do that. But sir, actually, this was my next question. The foot and mouth disease that the opposition kind of has. Haven't they kind of realized what sells and what doesn't? Demeaning Sanatan Dharma will not give you anything in this country. I mean, this is not something that people will accept. People are openly proud of their origins, and these are people from all strata and all uh, you know types of people, as a
So
matter of
that,
fact.
yeah. So there, as you see, this kind of blaming Sanatan Dharma kind of thing, maybe it's an issue in Tamil Nadu because of the Periyar legacy and the DMK, everything they could be doing it. But for Congress to do this, I think it
Hmm.
shows a big disconnect with reality, and it's probably happening because of the kind of people Rahul Gandhi is surrounded by, and they have I don't know whether they're Indian or he's been advised by international election advisors or those kind of agencies, and so they, I don't think, have really that understanding. And then within that also they do the flip flop. Na? One hand they'll
Hmm.
say this, then next they'll visit a temple and wear a tika, do something else. So it's a very hodgepodge message, and people
Yeah.
nowadays understand this dhongi thing very well. If you talk to a villager or people down the line, they'll tell you what a dhongi hai.
Hmm.
That that would come out everywhere. If you are in the south, there is a certain kind of religiosity which people have. But if I come there and try to pretend to do that, people will immediately make out
Nope.
where there is sincerity and where there is lack of it.
In Karnataka, a lot of people thought that Ram Mandir doesn't resonate, and I looked around and said, "Are you crazy? Most of Karnataka is Vaishnavites. I mean, think a little before you say this." But it's, I think, a complete lack of understanding of ground realities. Would you agree to that?
Yeah, it's absolutely so. And you see, the point is, while Karnataka, Ram Mandir resonates, but Ram Mandir is not going to be the only factor. So, as
Good.
Barkha was saying, that she on her this thing, she found in Karnataka or in Bangalore at least, India's global standing is of equal importance because if you're in a tech city, if you're really having so many people across the world, your families, everybody, that's a live issue. So for them, that will matter. But when you probably go up north, then Ram Mandir and Kashi or other things would be the principal factor. But here, this is more than good hygiene. And people understand that. And people understand the difference everywhere. And so that's there.
I mean, we kind of, you kind of hinted onto the international game. We had Mr. Petroda coming out and saying wealth redistribution. And funnily speaking, I don't know if you caught that. Yesterday, Justin Trudeau also said the same thing. We need to tax the people to redistribute wealth into the commoners. And there you go. You said, okay, here is something very interesting. I did a expose on this where I connected it to the World Economic Forum article that was written by Oxfam on the 1st of March 2024, where they had specifically mentioned India and the wealth, so-called inequality. Uh, the Guardian has gone so far as to say that the India was better in the British Raj as far as inequality was concerned uh, than it is today. How do you see the opposition today? And nobody's blind, everybody knows what's happening. The sorrows is something which has gone into the villages in this country. People in the villages know, oh, sorrows ka tattoo hai. That's something that you will hear quite a bit. How do you see these international narratives kind of being brought about? Was this a slip of the tongue? Was this a deliberate kind of an attempt to uh, appease, or what was it? And how do you see this whole narrative?
Yeah, there is always it's a small coterie, a group, which is controlling this kind of narrative across the world.
Mm,
And it'll still be a while before you break into that, uh,
yeah.
caucus. So if you read Swapan Das Gupta's article in Open, which I tweeted today, how
Mhm.
he was, somebody spoke to the NYT op-ed editor and opinions editor, and he agreed. He commissioned him to do a piece. There's so much dialogue, then finally they had to drop the piece, and because he obviously faced resistance from the larger editorial board, and somebody like Swapan is middle of the road. He's a person, and whatever he would have argued, even if it is certainly pro Modi, he would have done, but he would have done it in a logical manner, not by rabble rousing. But then you simply, this cancel culture comes in. And unfortunately, there are a lot of takers for that. But unfortunately, for a larger thing, but they are not really who will finally, uh, decide on the voting decision. That's why simultaneously, the other thing which is happening, Adi, if you see, there is also this trying to delegitimize the elections by pulling down the fairness of the election commission, saying that they are compromised. Then there is this whole question, obviously, of EVMs, which again, strangely, some of the biggest papers or media outlets have been raking it out. There are more and more questions being raised about EVM. So this is here again, it's a heads I win, tails you lose. One would ask that, okay, if you're really thinking that India Alliance is winning, then are you saying that they're winning despite EVMs? Or now you're saying that they have been also been able to fix EVMs, they've cracked the code. So it can't be both, no?
It's very, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's really funny. When you win, EVMs are fine. When you lose, EVMs are all rigged. And it's so funny,
No,
this whole narrative. Please.
no, I was saying that after winning post facto is one thing. But now, as the election is going on, if they're so confident that they are winning, the thing is changing. So obviously, they obviously have a greater confidence on the EVMs. So they can't be changing this narrative after June 4th to say, oh, we made a mistake. We pressed the code, but we figured out those codes were wrong codes, and that's why
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
there is this whole externalization, this living in denial as if everything, this I am okay, you're okay, sort of a thing, that I am okay, everybody else is not okay. Uh,
Mm,
2014 was supposed to be, this whole Kejriwal and anti-corruption, and that's what brought Modi. In 2019, the narrative, even Sashi Tharoor today is saying, oh, it was Pulwama which did it. If you really think an event like that could have just changed the course of the elections, you are again externalizing it. And
Yeah.
say they think that today there is no such issue, so therefore the opposition has a great chance. Sure, good luck to them. But then don't go and blame the EVMs and the election commission if, despite them, you're so confident of winning. Uh, Give the devil its due.
The funny thing that I noticed is the other day, Mr. Amit Shah made a very interesting statement. He said, when we say 400 par, the opposition says you've hacked the EVM. But then he says that BJP will not get more than 150 seats. How does he know? So it's a counter narrative right there. But the dangerous thing that I saw is the use of AI, sir, and the use of excess power, and that's something that we saw in both aspects of it. One was the use of AI, where you could have stoked literally a riot within certain parts of the country, which Mr. Amit Shah kind of dealt with. And yesterday, the use of AI just as a joke against the Bengal chief minister, and she reacted with an FIR uh, and a cautionary note to that person. Uh, and not even in the hidden thing or in the DM, it's bang in the open. um, what how do you compare these two? Because a lot of people are saying both the situations are the same. I don't feel so.
Yeah, but I think the Prime Minister, tackled it very well by putting his own image doing the same dance and saying, "Oh, I'm enjoying seeing myself dancing."
Yeah.
That's ultimate trolling, which has been done. But this AI, etc., as long as it's restricted to humor, it's fine. There are a lot of memes and other things which happen even without AI. But if it gets into the dangerous territory of having fake narratives or creating, as you said, communal disturbances or um, uh, any security issues, then obviously that has to be tackled on a different footing. And then, as you see, we make this double standards. If something happens, oh, you're doing that and you're hauling up people and throttling freedom of speech.
Hmm.
Those sort of contradictions or double standards, I don't think can be allowed.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to ask you two more questions. One is on the international game. Once again, we see a steady effort by now governments. I mean, it was previously the media, now it's like open from the governments to weaken Mr. Modi. And this is something that I look at it from a geopolitical aspect, is that we have this thing called strategic autonomy. We will not fight for you. We will not do this with you. We will not do that. We will do what we want to do for our own country, and that's how things are supposed to work. We see that from a lot of the governments, the whole timed releases on so-called assassination attempts and this and that. Although somehow they don't realize it kind of benefits Mr. Modi, but that's very interesting to me. But they're angling to kind of reduce his strength a little bit. That's there. And we also see the domestic coterie, which is trained by that same, I call it the deep state, trained and placed by the same deep state with the same motives. uh, are these people so silly that they don't think Indians will figure it out, that these are the same people playing the same game from the inside and out?
No, you're absolutely right there. And this deep state thing, I think if Modi and Shah come back a third time, which I'm quite confident they would, you'll find that getting far exposed. They have probably, to some extent, been a little guarded, or they couldn't. You'll find those things getting exposed. At least the assets in India will get exposed, and that's why maybe even they are very afraid of this return, and they're making this last desperate pitch
Hmm.
to stop him at the tracks. But when you look at abroad, there are two kinds of people. There's a Justin Trudeau, who is himself very insecure, to therefore to guard his position, he spouts all this kind of nonsense. And then if you look at the US, there may be two forces that are at work. There is the deep state or the other establishment which is working there, and there is an official state establishment, and there are these power dynamics happening there. But America, I think Modi's biggest insurance is they need India to do business, you know, and they also understand that if these great ideas of wealth redistribution and this what X-ray of the nation and all those things happen, then unless they really want to screw up India's future and go back to China, reduce, then that's gone. So that will be counterproductive for any of these countries to try and derail Modi. They may be thinking that, okay, we'll get him back, but get him back less powerful. Like everybody here also says that, some people say, oh, he should be back, but not with so much of majority. That
Mm.
could be one line of thinking among them. But I think Mr. Modi, and again, they are Mr. Modi and all are not people can think they're arrogant or whatever, but they are, as Mr. Modi himself had once said in Parliament, that people can tell me anything, but people should not underestimate my understanding of politics. So if they are also batting it in the front foot, like Jaishankar yesterday talking about the Newton's law applying even in foreign policy. So if they're doing that, they're not doing that, out of just being out of bravado or just being macho.
The one thing that I kind of figured from this entire thing is that, yeah, it's a certain kind of a narrative where they kind of want to tone it down a little bit. Modi ji thoda sa neeche ho jao. So which is what brings me to the last question, is that, you know uh, the third term, as per se, what people are saying, that this will be quite a this thing. uh, how do you think the third term will be positioned as far as India's global standing is concerned?
I think India's global standing, you will find on the global front, there'll be a huge, huge push on the economic development because ultimately it's the economy which speaks. You'll find there and then pulling out stops for reforms and getting investment into the country and getting also Indian businesses out there across the world. And that is what Modi is definitely going to try to do. And to do that, he has to take off a lot of roadblocks here.
Hmm.
They realize that you cannot do these things without the states playing with you in tandem. So those sort of things were hinted even in the interim budget. They're saying that the states now must align with the national objective, and therefore, he would need quote unquote many more double engine sarkar,
Hmm.
and they realize that, and so they will have double engine sarkars already where there are BJP governments in place. But other places like other states like in Orissa, etc., they will have friendly government who would go to that line. So I basically see that, and secondly, will come on the security front. You'll find India really, uh, uh, you know, uh, asserting itself in a sense, making trying to mitigate or buy insurance against those kind of interferences, especially from China. These are the two things which I see internationally. You find those are the two things they'll play, and the trade-off will be between economics, and with that, they'll try to get support of the international community for our defense strategy.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you so much, sir. This was a very, very kind of a,
Pleasure.
great sort of insight as to, I would say, a non-political insight into the Indian elections, and that, if that is possible, even. But thank you so much. I hope that this is not just one of our interactions, and it's just the beginning of very many to come forward.
Look,
Uh, Looking forward to your next one. Thank you so much. Jai Hind. Jai
looking
Bharat.
forward to it. Thank you. Bye.